Hello and welcome to Time to Get Fit. Tonight we are going to talk about the greatest weight loss story never told. It's an opportunity for you to see a huge national study that involved thousands of participants over 10 years. And yet most people never heard of it, have no idea why they did it, and no idea what the results of that study were. So again, we are going to take a look at the greatest weight loss study ever told. So got that put together for you in a little title slide to let you just really sink in what we're talking about. We all know the greatest story ever told. Tonight we're going to talk about the greatest weight loss story never told. Let's go ahead and get into it. It's called the Look Ahead Study. And the Look Ahead Study was designed to figure out what it took to help type 2 diabetics, were the actual participants in this study, to help them really see meaningful long-term weight loss as well as improved cardiovascular health. Those were the two main objectives. That's what the Look Ahead study was all about. The question that you basically want to keep in mind as we go through the information from this study is as follows. Is lasting weight loss possible if your life depends on it? So they're trying to figure out over a long period of time, can these people lose weight and keep it off? Because every study that they've done proves that if you can lose some weight, maintain it, you have much less likelihood of serious disease, much less likelihood of early death. So their lives did depend on it. That's not an unfair way to look at it. So we're going to talk about how it all came together and if they could succeed. I found it fascinating. I hope you do too. Let's take a look at the details of how this study set up. We have over 5,000 people involved. So we had an intervention group, which is the ones that are going to get all the help they can possibly get throughout the entire period of time, of 2,570 people. We've got 2,575 of the other group that are just going to get some rudimentary support like handouts, they can go see their physician and some general education. So that's your control group. It's like, what's the current status to treat diabetics versus what is the optimal thing we can do to make sure they really get what they need to get healthy, or healthier at the very least. So let's go back and take a look at a few more details about the study. Basically, we've got an average age for both groups of 59, an average BMI, body mass index, of 36. All you need to know about that is 25 is considered the best range for BMI. So these people were well overweight. Now, the Look Ahead study stands for Action for Health and Diabetes. And all of the folks in this study, all 5,000 of them, were type 2 diabetics. So make sure you understand this is one particular type of diagnosis. It may not apply to type 1 diabetics, and it also may not apply just to people who are obese but don't have diabetes. So keep that in mind. But if anything, people who might have been diagnosed with this, you would think would be more motivated. And we'll talk about what that meant in the course of the study. Here's the way they were going to break it down. These folks at Look Ahead set up 17 health centers around the country, 17 health centers, all taxpayer funded, grant funded. And they arranged for three phases, and we've got those laid out for you here. If you look at phase 1, that was supposed to be the first 12 months of the study. And phase 1, the goal was to lose 7 to 10% of your body weight. Studies indicate you should lose your weight as quickly as you can. That increases your chance of keeping it off. And their goal was truly 7%. But they said, let's go after 10% because then people will be more likely to at least get 7%. It's a little psychological approach they use, which I actually think is logical and it makes some sense. 3 meetings per month for each of the people involved. And the intervention group, let's be clear, these are the 2,500 people that they are going to handhold to success for years. The study was designed to go for 11 or 12 years. It's not one of your 90-day studies. This is the real deal. They wanted to see how to get this solved forever. So 3 meetings per month for the folks in the intervention group. Increase exercise up to 175 minutes a week. They had a phase-in schedule to get people up to that level. And get 10,000 steps per day of activity. That's the recommended dosage of steps that people should be going out of their way to take to have better heart and physical health. At least that's the theory, and that's what they were shooting for, to see what the impact would be if they forced people, required people, use whatever term you want, to do that. So that is phase 1, and that would last for 12 months. You get that kind of attention for 12 months. You're meeting 3 out of 4 weeks. You're getting emails and follow-up. You're really getting all the attention you need, plus a good, clear plan. plus food was provided. I should also add, if the people wanted the food provided, it was provided for them during the study, at least everything but one meal a day. So that's phase 1. Let's move on to phase 2. Phase 2 of the Look Ahead study had the following characteristics, and that is we had weight loss maintenance. It gets pretty simple from here. They really said, look, get the 10% of your weight off. If you can lose more, that's great. But from now on, we'll cut back on meetings because you should be at a good maintenance weight and not having to struggle so much. And we'll keep the online and phone and email consulting so we can make sure we're giving you good communications, education, updates, everything you need. But the issue is we just want you to kind of lock it in and leave it. And that's for years 2 to 4. And then keep your activity and exercise up. Moving on for phase 3, this is years 5 plus. Now it's really going to be optional. You should be locked into your new lifestyle and you really just want to show up once a month if you like when you need us. They did, I will add, I didn't put it on the slides, but they did have a number of backup plans. They called it a toolbox, where you had access to medications, weight loss medications if you were struggling. You had access to counseling. Anything you needed throughout this process for the intervention group was there. And I can't overemphasize that these were actual, and they still exist, physical centers that were set up throughout the country to provide services to the folks in this study. They wanted to really control every variable because, again, they wanted to prove what it took to see long-term results and help these people actually achieve improved health. So that's kind of what we're looking at here is like, hey, we'll do everything we can. We'll roll out the red carpet. We will give you the diet plans. We'll give you a good chunk of the food. We will counsel you with experts, nutritionists, registered dietitians, exercise consultants, all the medical professions. Everybody was in this game to make sure these people got what they needed. For the control group, it was more like, hey, we're going to give you what you've always gotten, which is some basic education, and we're there if you need us for appointments, medication, things like that. So hopefully you understand. That's what we're trying to compare here. What would happen if they did everything red carpet-wise in terms of improved weight loss and fitness or improved health measures to reduce cardiovascular disease. So let's talk about 4 years into this study, what happened. And it's important because everything, we have another entire episode that I really encourage you to watch on the New England Journal of Medicine's 2009 study. And that study lasted 2 years with pre-screened people for motivation without a particular health condition. They were just BMI 25 or higher. And those folks were all gaining weight back by the end of 2 years. So this study had all this extra help and was lasting for a period of 10 years or more, they were planning. Okay? So at the 4-year mark, it's unprecedented to see how the results played out. So like I said, let's dig into the graph and we'll talk about it. Basically, you can see that as per the plan, there was a significant amount of weight loss in this lower line, which is the group that had the interventions. They lost 8% of their body weight, which was right on target, not quite the stated goal, but beyond the goal they were trying to achieve. Home run. They got it done, and they got it done within a year. But as we've talked about in show after show, even with all the help, even with all the support, even with all the encouragement, even with the knowing that their health was going to improve, the line started to trend back up over 4 years. And by the end of the 4 years, they were only at 4.7% of their body weight reduced from the day they started. Okay, so that's still successful. I mean, it is so rare for a study to show any weight loss after 2 to 3 years. So here we are out 4 years, and they wrote a bunch of newspaper media about it, that this was working. It showed great results. Admittedly, there was some grave concern about the fact that the trend line was going back up, but at least there was still significant weight loss. And you did have your control group, which is, hey, what are we currently doing for the diabetics of the world out there? And they saw a little bit of weight loss without a lot of money spent on their behalf. And I did note at the top of this slide that there was some $100 million invested by the first 4 years to generate this 5% weight loss. So it was quite expensive per pound, I think you could agree, per pound of weight loss. But the point is progress. And I'm pausing for a minute because this is everything that I am on this show to teach you folks. Timing. What are our goals and how long do we want to sustain those goals? So let's take a look. Again, let me reiterate. What are our goals and how long do we want to sustain those goals? So at 4 years, things were looking reasonably good. There was a lot of money spent. There was a lot of effort put out, but at least they were showing improvement versus the status quo. and you had to feel good about that. But again, 4 years is not how long most people want to see weight loss or improve fitness or improve health. They want to see it for as long as they live. And this study was the first of its kind that took it beyond that period where everybody's like, it's starting to look a little weaker, but it's okay. What happens the next 4 or 5 years? That answer's here. That's the greatest weight loss story never told. These graphs might be a little challenging to see, so I want to walk you through each one of them. Let's stay on this slide for a minute. Let me make sure I really guide you through it. Basically, we're at 8 years now. They summarized 8-year results, and it's important that I note to you that this wasn't released until this year. This information just came out in February of this year. Let's look at these graphs so you can see what real efforts at long-term weight loss produce based on current diet methods, restrictions, portion control. These are all stated as to what they were trying to teach. This is what happens in the real world when people get this over the long period of trying to manage these things for life. Basically, if you look at the first section, this is overall results. There's male and female on the other columns, but on overall results. On their weight, you saw a big drop early, came back, and then it just kind of leveled off at the 4 kilograms of weight loss. About 8 pounds, a little over 8 pounds. The control group, the control group of people who had very little help was actually coming up and catching them. They were losing a bit of weight over that time too. So there's reasons that we're going to talk about, but it's important that you understand that there was some weight loss over 8 years, but it wasn't dramatically more than people who simply were given information and knew that they had a serious health condition they were trying to manage. Then you want to take a look at this next graph, which is FM, fat mass, okay? The fat loss. An unprecedented move in this study as well was to measure how much of the weight you lost was fat versus muscle. So if you look at the fat loss, the people who had no other help than just what they currently get in today's society, they lost no fat. Now, what does that mean? It means that they look at the bottom one. The bottom one is lean mass. How much muscle did you lose? Okay? The group that wasn't getting helped, almost all their weight loss, in fact, more than their weight loss, meaning they gained fat and they lost net muscle. That's what our current education produces over 10 years, is a deterioration of your lean mass and an increase in your fat percentage, even though you might show weight loss on the scale. Okay, well, good. I mean, now we've got a reason to have a $170 million study to get that changed. And that's what they were out there trying to do. So let's go back one more time to the graph and let's take a look at what happened for the intervention group. Lots of weight loss compared to the control group. Not a lot in real terms. It was basically 5% of the original weight, so it didn't meet the goal. But that's not the important thing. The important thing is that the lean mass comprised way over half the weight loss. Way over half the weight loss was loss of muscle. They lost more muscle than they did fat. Now, these are people getting coached. These are people getting all kinds of support. They can come in for group meetings. They were getting counseling. They had emails. I mean, I've reviewed it. You get my point. They were getting everything our society knows how to offer to help you manage your weight and fitness by telling you you have to live with restrictions. And the net result, after 8 years of this kind of message, was you'll lose a little weight, but you know what? You're going to lose more muscle than you're going to lose fat, and that is not healthy. That is a real issue that creates risk of additional disease and does not make you more fit. Well, that's not my opinion. That's basically the scientific data that shows if you lose muscle mass, it's not good for your long-term health. But we're not quite done with our discussion yet. We will very quickly. Let's go to the next graph. This is even smaller. But the graph is so interestingly illustrative, whether it's male, female, overall, the two groups were catching up with each other, which means that the intervention group got all the hype and all the support, and they did well. And then the hype didn't matter anymore. It's like, I really want the food I want, and they started going back to their old habits because they just felt like they were being restrained and restricted, and it was not a life they could find any enjoyment in. So they start going back, and that's the classic checkmark from hell pattern we've talked about in many shows. The control group didn't feel those pressures, and so they kind of just stayed level and did their thing and lost a little bit of weight, and they did lose a lot of lean mass. That's not what we're after as a goal. But I'm simply saying that they didn't do that much worse, and the two lines were about to meet. So now you're looking at a fact, and I really think you see the end of this greatest story never told. You're going to see why it ended the way it did. I think if time would have gone on, the people who had been intervened with would have felt so restricted and rebounded so hard that over time they would have ended up worse than people who never got any help at all. That's what the lines show trend-wise. I have no guarantee of that, but I do have a little anecdotal information that might sway you to understand why I came up with that conclusion. And that is this. Google search of the Look Ahead study will bring you up this on the top column. Look Ahead stopped for futility. $170 million spent. 17 centers, 8 years of these people's lives trying to tell them they were going to be helped. And after 8 years, there was virtually no weight loss. There was muscle loss, net muscle loss, I should say, and no reduced risk of cardiovascular disease whatsoever. And that's what this bottom, if you go back to the slide, that's the bottom indicates is they phrased it to the public that we're canceling this study because we're not seeing any improvement in heart health. You don't have to read everything on there. It's a little messy. Sorry about that. But in the end, they said, we just want to make sure we've studied and it's just futile. We have just the same mortality rate, just the same incidence of heart disease. We don't need to keep these, people funded. Let's just drop it. So they quietly dropped it. It did not make one headline. You could find it in the health section. If you look at this next slide, you'll see in the health section of the New York Times, diabetes study ends early with a surprising result. And reading to you a little bit, it ended 2 years ahead of schedule because the intensive program did not help. And every piece of data, go search it, I encourage you. Every piece of data you found out there says, well, they lost weight. Nobody mentions they lost more muscle than fat. We lost weight, so that part was successful. They literally state that. But nobody was getting better heart health-wise, and we really don't understand why. When the truth is they knew exactly why. People were not able to sustain these diet plans. They were basically not wanting to stay with the forced exercise programs, so they would eat as little as they could eat and manage their weight as best they could, and they would end up losing net muscle. And that is the reality, the harsh, brutal reality of the Look Ahead study. And it's exactly why I'm betting you'd never heard of it before right now, and why if you search the news section of Google, you will find no headlines about weight loss failing. You will find no headlines about the fact that with all the help science can offer, all you can expect after 8 years and all your best efforts is to lose muscle and a little bit of fat alongside it, or maybe even to gain some fat. That's the best they can hope for. You're no healthier after 8 years of struggling and trying to do what these people are telling you to do. And that is not a takeaway message that the industry wants you to hear, but that is now real science. They did the work. They spent the money. And all you hear about, and it's terrifying, is, well, we saw how to create long-term weight loss. We need another study to really get this all nailed down. And next time, they'll be able to manage the heart part even better. But it's just not true. None of it happened in a positive fashion at all. None of it. There were some markers that improved, by the way. I should be fair to the study. But none of them were the ones they set out to improve. And none of them were big, directly related to mortality or long-term health. So let's go to the takeaways on this particular discussion. I feel like if you spent the time to listen to what I had to say, you've heard something that you'll rarely, if ever, hear anywhere else, and that is the admission that there is no restrictive weight loss program in existence for people who are obese that has any scientific backing that it can last. 4 years maybe, 8 years absolutely not, and certainly not improving your health. So here's what you can walk away from and think about how you want to affect your choices starting tonight. Number one, there is no lasting results if you take a diet that says I'm going to restrict my calories, my carbs, my fats, and if I'm going to start forcing myself to live with predefined portion control. There's no evidence. Yes, there are random examples. I know people personally who have done it and succeeded. They are 1 in tens of thousands. I actually have a number, like 1 in 30,000 on average is who can succeed for 10 years with these sorts of programs. You're better off in Vegas rolling the dice. You're better off not going on a diet at all because guess what? The other 29,999 people are gaining weight and feeling more miserable and in worse health. Do you think you're going to be that 1 out of 30,000? I hope so, but I wouldn't want to bet on it. I think there are better answers. Number two, there is no benefits from intensive behavioral counseling to try to convince you that you shouldn't eat what you want to eat when you want to eat it. There's no benefits. Not after 8 years. Yes, I run a timing plan. I have a show on timing. Yes, a year from now, they can affect your thinking. They can affect your behaviors. 2 years from now, 4 years from now, getting out to when it really matters, you don't want to hear it anymore. You want to enjoy your life. And you have to learn a new way to manage that, because they're telling you, no, you can do this, is just not supported by any science whatsoever. And I don't know what else I can do other than show you they spent $170 million and couldn't do it. If you could put that kind of money behind it, maybe you'll do better. Once again, not exactly the best investment if you're thinking about choices. Finally, requiring exercise or activity, forcing it. Hey, park your car 5 miles away, run up and down stairs all day long, buy a Fitbit and track every single step you take, is a recipe for weight gain, not weight loss. Not for these people, and not for people who have, significant levels of BMI over 25. They'll stop. They'll resent it. They'll regret it. And they'll go the other way and sit because they feel like they've been forced to do something they don't want to do. Versus finding exercise programs they can tolerate, finding exercise they can love, not tracking every single step, and building something over time, once again, that could actually benefit you in a real, meaningful, long-term way. So those are serious takeaways that people need to think about, because it's the exact opposite of what you're being told every day. And you're being told that these programs, these commercial weight loss plans, these gyms will give you a transformation. And they're not lying, because it will, but it won't last. And they don't tell you that part. That's the part they mislead you on, and that's the part that's devastating our efforts to really help obesity and diabetes. We have to be thinking long-term if we hope to see the level of success they're asking for. So, who am I? I mean, I'm not a nutritionist, I'm not a registered dietitian, I'm not a medical doctor, no background in that whatsoever. Just a guy who could not manage any diet for 20 years and watched myself gain weight and get less healthy. And finally said, that doesn't work. I'm going the opposite way. I'm going to eat what I love, but I'm going to find a way to manage it. Okay? And so you can take my word for it, and you probably don't take my word for it given my background experience. But what about a person who spent his entire career in the obesity industry? What about a person who in 2009 had had enough and saw how these studies always go, how tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars don't change the fact that people love food, and they're biologically hardwired not to be restricted from it. So all I can do is show you his slide. Once again, it was in the New England Journal of Medicine study. It's hard to read. I'm just going to read you the bottom part. He mentions, look, we had a bunch of motivated people. In that study, it was 800. Here it was 5,000. We had a bunch of motivated people, and they couldn't reverse the obesity. No matter what we did for them, no matter how much we counseled them, we couldn't reverse it. We do not need another diet trial. We need a change of paradigm. Restrictions have got to end if there's any hope for people to stay on a diet long term. How do you have a diet without restrictions? How do you do that? How do you tell somebody, look, you can eat whatever you want, whenever you want, and it's actually a diet? I know that sounds bizarre and crazy, but how do you do it? The exact way I uncovered 7 years ago. You basically change your philosophy to timing your meals. So it's no longer an issue of if I can eat that or should I eat that, it's when am I going to eat that. And the timing guidelines, whether it's the metabolic timelines that are on a metabolic guidelines that are on a prior episode, please go watch it, it's on our website, or the behavioral guidelines where it's just, hey, I'm going to eat it for lunch today. I'm going to eat it for dinner tomorrow. It puts you in control. It lets you feel like you have some freedom and some choice, and you know you want to be healthy. You know you want to be fit, but you also want the food you love and the amount you love. You can balance both if you stop thinking of them as good or bad, healthy or unhealthy, and start thinking about them, wait, if I eat them every time, all day, my body can't metabolize that. If I eat them once a day, maybe involve some exercise around them, yeah, your body can metabolize that and it can deal with it. And I've worked with dozens of diabetics who have seen the benefits of this. So I'm not just coming at you saying their plan's horrible. I'm saying there's better answers out there. Okay, they've proven their plan can't work. So let's just go to ground zero there. Now it's like, well, that's out. What are we going to do? Timing offers an alternative. Timing offers an opportunity. Is it the ultimate answer? I have no idea. But until people stop believing in what's been proven not to work, we're never, ever going to find out. So with that said, I'll offer you the chance to contact us with questions at eatfit@gmail.com. We welcome your feedback and input. Hope you appreciated the science background tonight, and hope you saw what we wanted to educate you on, which is, hey, you're not at fault for these problems completely. You need to get more education and understand what really works and what doesn't according to science. If you want to go to our website, you can do that at easytimingdiet.com. And we've got the BMI calculator on there so you can kind of see where you're at today. We had a whole show talking about how BMI is so important. People think it's not, but it is. And if you watch that show, you'll understand exactly why. So take advantage of that. And let me also spend a moment and thank the facilities here at Marin TV. We really appreciate their opportunity to use their facilities and to broadcast our show. And my excellent director and cameraman, Walt Castaway, so helpful today. Really appreciate his help, and hopefully gave you all the slides you needed so you could make good understanding of what we're talking about and good decisions. And I want to thank you for watching and for taking the time to consider an alternative point of view about weight loss, fitness, and an amazing relationship with food, because that combination is lasting and something that you can get involved with and really want for the rest of your life, instead of struggling and suffering and hoping that you can learn to hate things you actually love and learn to tolerate things you have no interest in tolerating, in some hope that 10 years from now you might be happy because you weigh a certain weight. That's not how it works. I hope I showed you that tonight, and I hope you'll think about it, because we do want to see you have great health and great fitness and enjoy amazing food and just have a great life that can be long and fulfilling in the way you want it to be. So with that said, we'll see you next time. I thought you did a great job with the cameras. I was totally satisfied with your